And this is Kat, my colleague. We're just going to do a quick technology check to make sure everyone's okay. So if you can hear me, that's great. If you can't hear me, I would suggest logging out and then logging back in again. But hopefully everybody can see me. Again, if you can't, it's probably something on your end, so just double check. If you keep trying and it's not working, don't worry about it. This session has already started recording. So if the worst comes to worst and you can't hear and you can't see us, you'll get the recording at some point. So don't worry. Kat, I'm just going to share my slides. Fingers crossed.
It's so nice to see so many schools from so many different places. Thank you all for saying hello in the chat. That's really helpful.
How's that, Kat? Is that okay?
That looks good to me, but you're sharing presenter view, so you may want to just share your slide. Thankfully, Mr. Nichols' class can hear us now. That's good.
Okay, good.
That's
yeah,
good.
like I said, folks, if you can't hear, just try logging back in first, and maybe that'll solve the problem.
There's a lot of us here today, so sometimes with such a busy call, it can take a few seconds for sound to come through for everyone, and also sometimes just leaving and coming back helps. That's got it now, Jamie. Well done.
Good. First hurdle of the day cleared.
Just before we get started, I wanted to mention again, I've put it in the chat a couple of times, but if you would like to use captions for this meeting, if that's helpful to you, then just click on the 3 dots at the top of your screen, and there should be an option to turn on live captioning. And we're also going to try transcribing this meeting as well, so that we can use those in the recording later on.
Yeah, and just to sort of reiterate what Kat has said, I don't know how many people have been keeping notice of the attendance, but we're up to 400 classes now, which is fantastic. And I know a lot of you even joined before 9 o'clock while I was still brushing my teeth. So thank you so much. This is such a fantastic turnout, and hopefully a great start to the week. I'll try not to disappoint.
I'm really looking forward to this. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah. So we'll get started in 2 minutes. So just get yourselves comfortable, and yeah, we'll head off in a couple minutes. The lesson should last around 45 to 50 minutes. Don't worry, we're not going to eat into your break. So have no fear. And we've got quite a lot of interactive things to get stuck into as well. So you shouldn't just be sitting there listening to myself or Kat for the next 45 minutes either. So hopefully you have a good time. Okay, so starts the 1 minute countdown. It's so lovely to see. I don't know if you've been doing it, Kat, or anybody else, but on the chat, just seeing where all the schools are coming from is fantastic. I think my list of local authorities is not perfect, but I would bet most likely that they're all represented today, which is so lovely to see. So all the way up in Shetland, all the way down to the borders, I think we're covering almost everywhere, which is just lovely to see. Currently, Kat and I are placed pretty much in the center around Stirling area, so it's we're sort of bang in the middle of everyone. Right, I think we should just kick off. Okay. Well, like I said, folks, thank you so much for joining us. It's really lovely to be here. My name's Jamie, and this is my colleague, Kat, and we both work for Keep Scotland Beautiful, primarily on the Eco Schools programme. There's a very high chance that there's a bunch of you who have maybe already spoken to us on email and things like that already. What's quite odd about this is that there's over 400 classes in front of us right now, but we can't see anyone and we can't hear anyone. It's really odd for me to say, but if we could keep it that way, that would be great. Because we've got so many classes, it would be really good to keep that connection strong. We don't seem to have any technical issues right now. Fingers crossed that lasts for the whole lesson and the whole week. So yeah, if you could keep your microphones muted and your cameras off, that would be great. And if you do have a question or anything you would like to say or answers to questions that I'm going to ask, please raise your hand in class and your teacher will get to you, and then they can type it into the chat menu. If you don't know where the chat menu is, I think you probably all do, because you should be writing your school, your class, and where you're coming from. It's just a little speech bubble at the top of your Teams menu if you're not used to Teams before. But the reason we need your details is so that we can send you out the certificate that you'll get from completing this at the end of the week. So that would be really good if you could do that. Okay. So I'm just going to share my screen now. It worked first time. Let's hope it works a second time. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my screen. And what I should mention as well is that mostly Kat will be manning the chat menu. So if you have any questions, she's a fantastic typer and can type faster than I can speak. So she will be answering any questions that you might have. I'm afraid you'll be listening to most of my voice today, but hopefully it's not too dull for you. So let's crack on and see what we've got planned for this morning. So our plan of action, what's happening to our planet? That's the title of today's lesson. And today's lesson is kind of an overview of almost everything that we're going to cover this week. But it's also going to give you the base knowledge that you need in order to progress onto the other lessons throughout the week. And it's things that you may already know, or you may know some of them, but you might know all of the stuff that we're going to learn today. But it's really good to just remember and go over again if you're not quite sure. So the first thing we're going to look at is an overview of the greenhouse effect, because we've all heard that word so many times over the course of our lives that sometimes we can forget the simplest thing of what it actually means. Then we're going to look at how we are impacting the planet globally, and then look specifically at Scotland, because again, that's something that gets overlooked. We quite often know what's happening around the world, but we don't know what's happening to the changes in our own country. How is that impacting wildlife? We're then going to do, or I'm going to try my best to do a live experiment for you, which then you can replicate in the class or as a home learning activity or in your own free time. So hopefully that goes well. That's the one I'm most nervous about. So you'll see me probably shaking then. After that, we're going to have a look at your carbon footprint, or the carbon footprint of your school or family, however you want to look at it. But just a general overview of what a carbon footprint is and the carbon footprint of certain products, for example. Then we're going to have a bit of a carbon footprint game, which we'll finish with, or that'll be the penultimate thing that we finish with, and that'll be able to get your teeth into a bit of a quiz. Okay. I think Kat's already put in the chat, but whatever work you do throughout this week, whether it's home learning tasks, whether it's the experiment that you get into, whether it's One Planet Picnic, whether it's anything that you do related to COP26 or the things that you've learned through this Climate Action Week so far, please tweet us, Facebook us, Instagram us. We would absolutely love to see the work you're doing. Because Kat and I are both in our homes, we've not been in schools now for over a year and a half. So we quite miss seeing all the amazing work that you do. We used to go into schools all over the place and get to see firsthand all the great work that you're doing. So it'd be lovely for you to tweet us and just show us the amazing work that you're doing, and we'd love to see it. Okay. So first things first, the greenhouse effect. What's really important to remember about the greenhouse effect is that it's a natural phenomenon. Okay, so even if humans didn't exist on this planet, the greenhouse effect still would. So quite often when we think of the greenhouse effect, you said it's quite a nasty thing, but that's only because we're effectively changing it a little. But I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because you don't really need to know the entire science behind it. But essentially, if you can see the screen in front of you, what it shows is that the sun's energy comes through our atmosphere and onto our planet to heat it. The greenhouse gases and the atmosphere act like a blanket. Okay, so just like when you're in bed, your body heat heats up that bed for you, and the sun's energy that passes through and stays on our planet heats up us. If we didn't have those greenhouse gases in that atmosphere to act as a blanket for us, our planet would be around minus 18 degrees. Okay, so too cold for the majority of life to live on all year round. Okay, so that's really important to remember, is that this is a natural thing. We absolutely need it in order to survive. And it's only the way that we are changing it that it's having a negative impact. So we're going to do a bit of a game. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a second. So my lovely assistant, Catriona, has been looking forward to this for a long time. I'm going to transform her into planet Earth. Okay, so she's no longer Cat. She's not a colleague. She's not a friend. She's planet Earth. Okay, so we have got to then decide how our impacts are affecting planet Earth. So what are we doing to create these greenhouse gases that are going into the atmosphere? Okay, so what I would like you to do is raise your hand if you can think of any activities that humans are doing on planet Earth that are changing to impact it, to increase the amount of gases going into the atmosphere. So just raise your hand, your teacher will say, and then you can write it in the chat, please. Steam trains, I see one. Cars are a great one. So planet Earth, could you put a blanket over you? Because that's adding more gases. So these gases that we're talking about, they're going to be represented by the blankets. So how are you feeling, planet Earth? Say that again, planet Earth. Didn't quite hear you. You're muted, planet Earth.
It's not so bad.
Not so bad, okay.
Not so bad.
Good, good. What else are we doing? So we've got cars, somebody said trains. What else have we got? So littering landfill, yeah. So we've got lots of gases being given off from landfills. Yep. So let's put another blanket on there, planet Earth.
Oh. Yep.
I've been waiting forward to this for quite a while. Good.
There we go.
Okay, we've got some great answers coming in, planet Earth. We've got factories.
Oh,
yep,
that's a good
factories definitely giving off fossil fuels that people are saying. Well done. Get another blanket on there.
Another blanket. Here we go. Getting a bit toasty under here.
Is it getting toasty? Okay.
A little bit, yeah.
Toasty.
Not so much air either. There we go.
Oh no, right. So maybe the air is getting a bit thick or a bit polluted, maybe.
Yep.
So we've got, what else? We've got factories, pollution, planes is a good one. So we're talked a lot about transport, but yeah, planes, absolutely.
That's a good one.
Anything else? So I think we've got factories, planes, cars, landfills. Anything else anyone can think of? Or any other types of burning, maybe? Things that you might have seen on the news. Any ideas?
It's definitely getting a bit warmer under here, Jamie.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is, planet Earth. Don't worry. Hopefully we can think of some solutions to decrease that soon.
Oh, I hope so.
Hopefully everybody's thinking. I saw somebody saying methane, cutting down trees. That's a great one. So you've beat me to, oh, we've got them all now. Oh, everybody's
There we
coming in.
go.
That's great. So we've got farming. So that can be both arable and livestock farming, but we've got methane from livestock. So we'll stick that on planet Earth.
Right, that's another blanket.
And the last
There we
one that I
go.
think I saw, which was a really good one, was cutting down trees.
Right, that's a good one. Here we go.
Oh my goodness, you're almost unrecognizable, planet Earth.
Oh, this is heavy.
This is heavy. How do you
And it's
feel?
very warm. I feel very warm.
Very warm. Okay.
Very, very warm.
Right. It's up to us now, folks. It's up to us to help planet Earth. So what we're going to do, we're going to fast forward 5 years into the future. So right now, you're probably all primary 5 to primary 7. So let's start thinking about when you're getting towards the end of high school. How are we going to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere? What are we going to do? What are some examples of things that we can do to reduce those gases? So the things you've talked about already, whether it's driving cars, flying planes, cutting down trees, factories for making products, what can we do to reduce that? So again, just type it in the chat when your teacher has chosen you in class. We need the Earth to cool down quick because I think she's getting pretty hot.
Yes, please.
What seems to be happening on my chat is that it was very quiet very quickly, then a million come in all at once on the chat.
That's fine. Take your time and think about your answer.
Yep.
Give me some help.
I hope they're typing answers planet Earth, otherwise they're just letting you burn.
It might help to think about what were the things that made the blankets go on? How can we reverse some of those things? I'm hearing a lot of pinging.
Oh, really? Oh, maybe you could have a look quickly, planet Earth, because I'm not getting anything on my chat.
I'll cheat and have a wee peek. Oh, I see windmills, solar power, renewable energy,
right.
eat less meat, wildfires. Well, maybe not. Stop using cars for travel. Stop. Oh, yep.
This is fantastic, right? I'll take over and we can. So it seems to be.
Loads.
It's just not on my chat, so that's fine.
That's okay.
Let's say plant more trees is one. That's a fantastic one. We need to stop cutting down trees and plant more of them. So let's take a blanket off planet Earth.
Oh, thank goodness.
Because that's what you've been able to do. 5 years in the future, we're planting far more trees. We're restoring our forests in Scotland, the UK, Northern Europe. We're restoring our peatlands. Changing our diet. So I'm not telling you to stop eating meat altogether, but reducing the amount of meat. You know, it's quite common in the schools now, especially the ones that myself and Kat, I'm not sure where Kat's gone, but but we used to work with schools who have meat-free Mondays and things like that. So let's take another blanket off. Maybe even just reducing the amount rather than stopping altogether is a good start. Great. Somebody said landfills, so reducing our food waste is a fantastic one. Finishing the food that we have. Not throwing it in the bin so that it goes to then rot in a landfill and then give off those gases that we were talking about. It's great. So let's take off another one there. Planet Earth. Lovely.
Even
and somebody
better.
said, They're good. I think the first one somebody talked about was wind farms or wind turbines. And we've got some really good news because in the last few weeks, Scotland announced that last year, Scotland's electricity supply supplied 98% of our electricity from renewable energy, which was fantastic. So let's take another blanket off there because we're no longer relying on coal and things like that to make our electricity. There we go. And the last one I think was the transport issue, if I can remember correct.
I think Jamie's just frozen. So I think what he was going to say is the transport issue, which means if we drive less and fly less, we should be able to take this last blanket off, which feels so much better. I'm seeing loads of good answers in the chat. This is amazing. Cycling, walking to school, recycling, exactly. Everything that we can do to reverse those things that got the blankets on in the first place will help us to reduce the effects of climate change. I wonder if we've lost Jamie. Let's find out. Hang on. We'll just get Jamie back so he can finish his lesson. There he is. Hello,
Kat,
Jamie.
can you hear me?
So nice to have you back.
I know I got kicked off my own lesson. That's not the first time that's happened.
That's okay. We were talking about we were talking about transport where you left off, and saying that if we drive less and fly less, then that will enable us to take that last blanket off. And I was just saying I feel so much better. It's so much easier to breathe. And I'm so much cooler because I'm telling you, it was very warm under there. Yes. So all those layers of greenhouse gases are not making the Earth feel very comfortable at all.
That's great. And that's a perfect segue because the next question, the last question I want to ask on this is we keep talking about greenhouse gases, but does anybody know what types of greenhouse gases there are? So again, you can just write them in the chat. I've heard one mentioned already, but it'd be nice to see more. Oh, my chat is getting flooded with all the previous messages that have come up. Hopefully I don't get kicked off again. That would be nice.
So many good answers.
Yeah, CO2, excellent. Methane, well done. Excellent. So those are you're absolutely right. Those are the two main contributors to climate change, global warming, and the greenhouse gases is methane and carbon dioxide. And that's, I think, all we really need to know about today. So don't worry, but that's great. Well done. So I'm just going to share my screen again. And hopefully I do not get kicked off. You see that okay, Kat? Great. Okay, so yeah, this is how, basically, like you've all been saying, this is how humans are having an impact on the greenhouse effect. It's a very fine balance between all the things at the right levels. And when you increase something, especially something like greenhouse gases, that means essentially less heat is escaping. It's being trapped on our planet, which is why the planet is heating up. And that's how climate change is affecting us all. Now, there might be some of you amongst us who maybe aren't too sure about climate change and whether they might think, I hear all this stuff, but I don't really see it and I don't really believe it. But hopefully so far, you understand the science that it's a blanket effect and that by increasing the gases increases the temperature. So this experiment that we're going to do next is going to show you how that gas increases the temperature. And it's a very simple experiment. So if I go next, these are the supplies you need for the experiment. It's very, very simple. Most of you will have this stuff. If not lying around your house, there'll definitely be this stuff in your school. So like I said at the beginning, you can do this as a class experiment. You could do it as a home learning task, or you can do it in your free time, whatever's necessary. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. so that I can show you. Kat, it might be better as well if you stop your video as well. So like I said, this is the one I'm most nervous about. Last thing I want is all my experiment to go over onto my laptop. So here we go. We need 2 bottles, like I said, and we've got one of the bottles is filled with vinegar, about 400 milliliters of it. This is going to act as our control. So I'm just going to put this, just move this out of the way for a second. I'm going to put this here for a second. I'm going to get my thermometer and I'm going to get a handful of blue tack. And what I'm going to do, stick the blue tack to the thermometer, and then on the inside of the plastic bottle, that's what I'm going to stick. Okay, this is going to act as our control for the experiment. I'm going to grab a balloon and I'm going to put that over the top. So that's what it should look like. You have a look at the thermometer. You might not be able to see it there because it's a bit bright, but I can see currently the thermometer is at about 19 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to put that on my windowsill. The next one is the exact same. I've put the vinegar, 400 milliliters at the bottom. I've put the thermometer up there. Oh, I forgot to say, this is something I've always wanted to say. Here's one I made earlier. So I've got this one up here, the thermometer, and I've put a balloon on it as well. The only difference is that this balloon is filled with a little pinch of bicarbonate of soda. And what this does is this creates CO2, carbon dioxide. So the whole point of this experiment, these bottles are acting as our atmosphere. And once this is mixed, which I'm going to do in a second, once this is mixed with the vinegar, for the science behind it is mixing an acid with an alkaline to create carbon dioxide, if you're interested. But we'll be able to see over the course of however long you want, what the temperature will go up to. Because right now it says it's the same, it's about 19 degrees. So let's see what happens. What I would recommend is holding the bottom of the balloon because sometimes it can shoot off. Okay, are we ready? So maybe start thinking about what's going to happen. Maybe is it going to go up in temperature? How much is it going to go up in temperature by? Why is it going up in temperature? And if this was the Earth, what impacts would that be having on the inside of our bottle? So let's have a look. You ready?
Ready.
Okay, so look at that. You can see the balloon, it's getting bigger and we've got a lot of stuff happening, bubbling away. So I'm holding on to this because I think it probably would have shot away. So I'm quite grateful I was holding on to it. So it's still fizzing away. So what should happen is that should bubble right down to what the vinegar was at before, but now it's creating this gas. Okay, it's creating this gas in the bottle and in the balloon of carbon dioxide. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to leave that there. I'm going to put it to the side. And what I would do if I was you, I would do almost a long experiment with this if you can. What is it like after 1 hour? What is it like after 6 hours? What's it like after a day? Okay, does the temperature change a lot or a little? And then that has an impact on our planet. Think about what we've just spoken about with greenhouse gases, all the cars, all the planes, everything that we've spoken about. All that carbon dioxide and methane and greenhouse gases will have a heating effect. Okay, so but let's see how much, let's see how it looks. Maybe I can look at it at the end of the lesson if I remember, and we can see how much it's changed by. Okay, so this one, I'm just gonna share my screen again. Okay, hopefully you can all see that. I'll just move on. So we've talked about how the greenhouse gas effect works. We show how carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases heat the planet, but how is that heating changing our planet? How is that affecting it? So in the chat, feel free to write how it's doing that. How is that change in temperature affecting our planet? What is its impact? Kat, it might be best if my chat's maybe not as up to date as yours. Oh no, I can see some. We've got we've got wildfires, we've got melting ice caps, forest fires, extreme weather, rising sea levels because of the ice caps melting, animals losing homes. See, this is great. And you've got to remember as well, this all has a knock-on impact. So somebody said they're melting ice caps, and if all the ice caps are melted, that's going to raise the sea level. If wildfires are happening because of rising temperatures, then the animals will lose their homes, and so will we as humans. Okay, this is fantastic. Flooding, great. That's actually a good one. So we've talked about the global things there, which is fantastic. But what about how is this change in climate or change in temperature on our planet affecting Scotland? What's happening in Scotland? Some of you might be too young to maybe compare it to 5 years ago, but your teachers, I'm sure, have maybe noticed a lot of difference in Scotland from when they were your age, perhaps. So yeah, we've got warmer climates in Scotland, rising sea levels that will affect us. There's a lot, we've got our two biggest cities are on the edge of the coast almost, more flooding, warmer summers, good. We've got warmer weather in the summer, but we've actually got wetter weather in winter. So because the weather's warmer, there's less snow, essentially. Flash flooding. These are fantastic answers. Yeah, thanks, Kat. They're really good. I don't think we've got hurricanes. I could be wrong. We might have maybe hurricane winds or the same speeds, maybe, but you never know. You never know. So these are fantastic answers. You're gonna learn more about this throughout the week, so don't worry. The next thing we're going to go on to look at, because again, somebody mentioned it during the greenhouse gas debate, was the impact on different species. So what I thought would be quite a good idea, because we all know the impact of polar bears, but what about some specific animals in Scotland that you're maybe not aware of and how they will have an impact? We've spoken very briefly about how the change in climate will impact Scotland, but how is it going to impact the animals of Scotland? And this is something you're going to learn a lot about tomorrow with our guest speakers, which I'll talk about later. And it's very exciting. So we've got red deer, okay? And we talked about having warmer summers and warmer weather in Scotland, and that's going to have a big impact on red deer. Okay, so just two examples that I'm going to talk about or just briefly mention is the fact that there's more ticks, and maybe you've seen this when you've been out for walks in longer grasses, forests, things like that. There's far more ticks and parasites available. And when you have an animal that lives in long grasses and fields and forest, that can be really, really dangerous. These parasites, especially if they get into the babies of red deer and things, and the bambies and the fawns, then it's a really it can really compromise their immune system. So that's something we want to not happen. Does anybody recognize this bird? Anybody anybody in the northeast? I hope so. Anybody name this bird? Oh, it's not a red grouse, but you're in the right family. It is a type of grouse. Not a pheasant. Think higher up. Ptarmigan. Oh, whoever said ptarmigan, double points. Well done. So for those of you who are unaware, a ptarmigan is a bird that lives quite high up in the cairngorms. And you might not recognize it like this. I don't think I would have recognized a ptarmigan in the summer. However, this is what a ptarmigan looks like in the winter. Okay, so you can imagine the big problems for ptarmigan if we have warmer summers and wetter winters. Okay, the reason they go white is to blend in and camouflage with the snow. Just like in the summer, they have that mottled effect so that they're camouflaged in the heather and the moors. but they can't camouflage if there's no snow. Therefore, predators can prey on them very, very easily. And again, the same issue with more parasites can affect them just as they can affect the red deer, and just as they can affect us. They carry diseases and problems which affect many, many species. Okay, excellent. Well done, folks. Some really fantastic answers there. Really good. Like I said, you're going to learn far more about this from Jess, Rachel, and Jasper tomorrow, who work at Edinburgh Zoo and the Highland Wildlife Park, and they're going to have some special guests. So make sure you tune in tomorrow to learn far more about the different species that are going to be affected by this. Okay, so we're going to move on. We've got about how long we got? We've got about 15 minutes left, so that's great. We're going to look at carbon footprints now. Just a bit of an overview. Again, I think everybody probably understands the idea of carbon footprints. But the graph in front of you is supposed to show the average carbon footprint of a person in the UK, but it's for adults, and most of you are obviously not adults. So take this with a bit of a pinch of salt, but this is generally what people in the UK, if you split up their carbon footprint percentages, this is what it looks like. Okay, so travel, usually traveling to work, or depending where you live, you could travel more or less. Your home, you've got to heat your home, you've got to charge things in your home. Your food, where your food comes from, what type of food you eat, and then there's everything else that you buy. Okay, so what's important to remember is our carbon footprint is what we do and consume and how that affects our planet. Okay, so every item has a carbon footprint. Everything we do has a carbon footprint to an extent. Some are far lower than others, meaning that they're far better for the planet, and others are sky high, meaning they're quite bad for the planet and they're not really sustainable. So that's when we have a higher carbon footprint, because the things that we do have a higher carbon footprint. Okay. So what we're going to do now is, this is where the quiz idea comes, and hopefully I can explain it well so that you understand. But we're going to look at how bad and how good some things are compared to others, and it's going to be up to you to choose this. Okay, so there's going to be some bums off seats just now, but there'll be some bums on seats as well. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. But I've got a few pictures to show you, and then you have to vote for your answer as a class. Okay, so I'll get on to the next slide and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So you have to decide which one of these has the lowest carbon footprint. Kat is about to drop a poll into the chat. So you have to decide as a class, do you think a kilogram of lamb has a lower carbon footprint than a kilogram of chicken? If you think the lamb is lower, stay sitting. If you think the chicken is lower, stand up. Okay, and then your teacher can input it into the poll that should be on the screen right now. So I'll give you a few minutes because there might be some debate. So remember, put your answer into the poll. What are we at? 64 responses. Chickens currently, people think chickens the lowest, 65% so far. Okay, 68% people think chicken's lower. 100 responses, so we still should have quite a few to come. If you have any other points to add, feel free to put them in the chat as well. That's fine.
Have a go at putting your answer in the poll if you can, instead of in the chat, because it helps us to count the answers.
Yeah. So if you, on your screen, you should have the question in front of you, and you can just click either lamb or chicken and submit your answer. So we've got 178 responses so far. So far, 70% of people say chicken. Interesting. Okay. Okay, I'll wait 10 seconds and then I'll reveal the answer. And you can decide if you're correct or not. But there's a pretty big majority saying chicken at 70%, 30% saying lamb. Let's have a look. Whoever said chicken is correct. So per kilogram, chickens produce about 10 kilograms of CO2e. And what the E means is the equivalent. So some of these examples will have different greenhouse gases, but it's all been recalculated in the form of CO2. So that's just what it means. So 10 kilograms of CO2e for chicken per kilogram of meat and 40 kilograms for lamb. Okay, so I'm not going to go into too much detail because our colleague Eve is going to go into a lot more detail on this on Wednesday when she discusses food and the environment and things like that. So absolutely tune into that because it's really interesting. But yeah, it's remembering that lambs have more is because they produce methane, and remembering that methane is about 30 times more powerful as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. But thankfully, there's not as much of it. Okay. So let's go on. Okay. So which one of these items has the lowest carbon footprint? So sit down if you think it's driving 20 miles. Stand up if you think it's having a Teams meeting like we're doing now. And you can put it into the chat. Kat's just released the poll on the front of your screen. So which do you think has the lowest carbon footprint? Driving 20 miles, sit down. Stand up if you think it's a Microsoft Teams meeting. Let's see where we're at. It's a strong start for the Teams meeting. Pretty comfortably ahead. I feel like I'm commentating on a race or something. And here's Microsoft Teams meeting, 90%. Driving 20 miles, oh, sneaking back up by a few percent. It's a photo finish. So we've got about 160 responses going up.
If you're having trouble finding the poll, because I noticed for the chicken and lamb one, a few people have said that they couldn't find it. It should be in your chat window. What might be happening is that it could be moving up as people post replies, but it should be there for you.
So we've got about 200 responses. Everybody seems to quite convincingly say that the Teams meeting has a lower carbon footprint than 20 miles driving, with 90% of the vote for the Teams meeting. So let's have a look. I'll just have a look at the messages actually. Okay, yeah. Right, let's have a look. Yeah, so the Teams meeting is correct. Sorry, I've just seen on the chat somebody saying that the responses are delayed, so the answers to previous questions are coming in. Yeah, sorry about that. I know there's a if you scroll up, what shouldn't happen is that you shouldn't it shouldn't send you all the way back down when somebody types. So you can scroll up to the poll and just stay there. But yeah, sorry. So you're absolutely right. The Teams meeting has a lower carbon footprint, and as we can see here, quite a significantly lower carbon footprint. Per hour, it's 0.05 kilograms of CO2e, which is very minimal, and driving is 10 kilograms or 10,000 grams. So you can imagine if Kat and I had to drive to all over Scotland to deliver this lesson, how much of an impact, how much of a carbon footprint we would have. It would be huge. So things like this are fantastic for us to be able to deliver and speak to everybody all over Scotland without even having to set foot in our car, which is fantastic. And the carbon savings we are doing, or that we're saving from doing this meeting, are huge, absolutely huge. So well done. Good answers. This one might be a bit trickier. Let's have a look. So, which one of these has the lowest carbon footprint? 1 hour a day on your phone for 1 year. So every day, 365 hours of phone time, or a return flight from Glasgow to London. So if you think the phone one has a lower carbon footprint, stay seated. If you think flying from Glasgow to London has a lower carbon footprint, then stand up. And the poll is in the chat, or it should be on your screen. Remember, if the responses are delayed, you can just scroll up on the chat and you should still be able to vote if the pop-up's not on your screen. So we're at about 60 responses. Oh, it's quite close. 1 hour a day on the phone is edging ahead by 58%. Return flight from Glasgow is at 40%-ish. This one's much tighter. This will be interesting. Edging further ahead, we're now at 60-40 for 1 hour on your phone. I'll maybe wait until, what I've done with the rest is wait until about 200 responses. We're at 145 right now, and it's gone down a bit. It's 55%. Think an hour on your phone is less than a return flight from Glasgow to London. But it's getting shorter again, 173 responses. We're almost at 50-50. This is interesting. Wow. This is quite a tricky one, I told you. I wasn't lying. Okay, we're pretty much bang on 52% for an hour on your phone a day. So let's see what the answer is. I'm afraid it's a return flight from Glasgow to London. Okay, that's less, and quite significantly less as well. It's about 500 kilograms compared to 1,025 kilograms. Okay. The main issue is the fact that the electricity needed for your phone in Scotland is all generated by wind energy or things that renewable energy that we've talked about. But what we've not spoken about is the storage of that data. So storing your photos, your videos, your everything that whether it's text, whatever, it's all stored on servers, and those servers require a load of energy and need to be kept at really specific temperatures, and that is very carbon intensive. So again, I'm not going to go into details about that because more colleagues will at the end of the week as well. And I realize we're running a bit behind. So this is the last one of the quiz. Which one of these has the lowest carbon footprint? A pair of trainers or a pair of jeans? So sit down if you think it's the trainers, stand up if you think it's the genes. So quite strongly genes so far. I might cut this a bit short. Again, I don't want to leave. I know that the time is up now. Hopefully everybody's okay for an extra 5 minutes. But we're at 76% for genes with 100 responses and 26% for trainers. So let's see. And the people who've put it in the chat seem to all be saying genes as well. Interesting. We've got one that says trainers. Okay, wow. So let's have a look. I'll end it there, but it's pretty much 75% of people are saying that genes are the most. Let's have a look. It's trainers. Okay, so trainers have a lower carbon footprint than genes. So what you've got to remember is that first of all, there's 25 billion pairs of trainers made every year. And 70% of the emissions of trainers comes from making the shoe themselves. This shoe in front of you on the screen is made of 26 different materials, and there's over 360 steps in order to make that shoe, which is a really carbon intensive process. But genes are far more, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about genes, but because I'm going to have colleagues later on talk about the water footprint, but the water footprint of genes is really high, and you can probably see with just the carbon, the CO2 emissions from both is quite high. Even the trainers, even though they're lower, it's still higher than chicken, for example, which was 10 kilograms. So it's quite interesting when you start looking into different types of clothing, the carbon footprint of those. Okay, right. So this is just sort of winding up now. We're coming to the end. One of the things that you can look at is in your resource pack is guidance for calculating your carbon footprint, either as a school or as individuals in a school. But it's something you can also do in your family and things like that. This is the one that our colleague Eve has been working on, and it will be in your, it'll be in your resource link that you'll get. Again, I'll go into that at the very last slide. But it's a great activity to try as a whole school or as a class, as a family, whatever you want to do, to see where you're at with your carbon footprint and maybe what you can work towards improving. This is something, again, that's in your resource pack, is a One Planet picnic, and it's something that we're encouraging everybody to do at the end of the week. We've already spoken about food waste and how much of an impact food has on the planet. Eve will talk about this more on Wednesday, but we'll sort of hint at it every day at least. But it's just a lovely way to end the week and to celebrate with a picnic, either as a class or a school or as a group of friends. It can be a snack, lunch, or tea. What's really good about it is it reduces food waste, and it includes local in-season food that's ethically made. And it should also reduce the packaging waste as well, which doesn't have a huge direct impact on carbon savings, but we all know about the problems with plastic pollution, which is almost a separate issue, but it needs to be tackled as well, almost in the same way. And who can have a One Planet picnic? Anyone. Okay, you can do it by yourself if need be. You can do it with others. You can do it with your family. You can do it with your class. Absolutely anyone. So please feel free to do it. And if you do plan on having one by the end of the week, give us a share. Hashtag One Planet Picnic, and we'll be able to see. But we've also got the links, like I said, at the top of the slides, for you to have a look at as well, if you're on the social medias. And the final thing, the very final thing, is I'm not sure if everybody here is an eco school or not. Like I said at the very beginning, myself and Kat primarily work on that program, and I'm sure you probably heard of it, and you've maybe seen schools with green flags either in their school or hanging outside. But doing this is almost the first step to becoming an eco school. And if you want to plan actions that you can do throughout the year or your entire school year or 2 years or your entire school journey, let's start putting that into a plan. Okay, what can you do as an individual, as a class, as a school to improve the sustainability of your school? Okay, and this is where the action plan comes into effect. This is the main document that we use for eco schools. So if you're thinking about doing any actions or undertaking any actions or big ideas or things like that, really think about becoming an eco school if you aren't already, because it gives you a reward for doing stuff that you're already doing. Anyway, that's my sell. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Me and Kat appreciate it so much, and the rest of the team. I hope I haven't bored you too much with my speaking. I'm only 5 minutes late, so I don't feel too bad. But the very last link there on the screen, which you can see, just highlight it here. If you've not registered to receive your resource link, please send an email to this address, and we'll get the resource link out to you for this. We'll be back with you tomorrow, myself and Kat in the beginning, to hand over to Jess, Rachel, and Jasper. And they have got such a fun lesson planned on all different kinds of animals and wildlife, specifically looking at Scotland. And like I said, they've got some very cute special guests, shall we say. And bearing in mind, one works at Edinburgh Zoo and one works at the Highland Wildlife Park. So you can use your imaginations who their guests might be. But thank you again. And I'm sorry I got kicked out the meeting, but we had a great time, and I hope you learned a lot and had a great time as well. So thank you so much, and have a lovely rest of your day.
Jamie, one small thing before we go.
Sure.
Just wanted to remind anybody, if they had any questions from your class that you're left with, please can you put them in the chat, because we're looking for some questions to answer to start off our day tomorrow. So if you're left with any burning questions, please let us know. And we've had a couple of requests to check the temperature of the bottle, Jamie.
I was just about to say, I was holding up the bottle there. So I'm just looking now. So this one, it's actually 20 degrees. It's gone up to 20 degrees. So that's a 1 degree increase in 20 minutes. So imagine if you did it and you could leave it for a day. And what I might actually do is I'll come back and I'll keep this on my desk today, and we'll have a look at it tomorrow morning before we hand over to Jess, Rachel, and Jasper. Okay, we'll see what happens.
And for the action plan, if you're going to use one, your task for this afternoon is to start thinking of a target or an aim for your action plan overall. What would you like to accomplish with your action plan to take on climate change? Each day throughout the week, we're going to give you another step on your action plan, so that by the end of the week, you'll have an action plan ready to take on climate change with your class. And that action plan, as Jamie said, can be added to your Eco Schools work for your green flag.
Right. Thank you so much, folks. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you bright and early again tomorrow morning, hopefully.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.